Hi there, it's Stephen Thomas with Reports on Housing. We're coming to you with another housing debrief. First, I wanted to kind of go over what's going on in the housing market. Even within the last week, we still saw a slight rise in the inventory, and we saw demand continue to come down, even though interest rates are getting better and better and better. It's just we have to have these lower interest rates with duration to start to really see it in the pending sales activity. So, but for now, what we're seeing is the inventory has not yet quite peaked, and we have demand coming down a little bit, which means the market continues to slow down. This is a really good time to be a buyer because there's a lot more out there. There's a lot more to choose from. So the choices are a lot more than they've been for quite some time. As a matter of fact, the market is as slow right now in some areas as it was like in 2022, the second half. So this is a really good opportunistic time for a buyer to jump in if they wanted to purchase when it leans more heavily in favor of buyers, because as these rates continue to go down, it's just going to ignite more pending sales activity and demand, buyers activity. And it's just happens to be that these lower rates are coming at a time when the first couple seasons of the market, the spring market and the summer market, are now in the rearview mirror. I understand it's still summer right now. However, it's officially the autumn market as soon as all the kids go back to school. The kids did go back to school, so we already see that downshift, and this is common, very, very common for September. We don't all of a sudden see a bump in demand because the kids went back to school. So that's where we're at right now. We're kind of in the autumn market. It precedes the actual start of autumn, but housing is definitely in the autumn market. So because it is lining up these lower rates during the slower time of the year, autumn and the holidays, we're not really going to see a big boost in demand until after we get past the new year, and that's when all of a sudden you'll see the market really ramp up. But I'm getting way ahead of myself. First, want to get into a foreclosure update. This is kind of like we talked about a bubble last year in the housing market, housing crashes, and wanted to kind of dive into foreclosures just because somebody put a comment in the comment section, and it just made me think that, geez, if these people are putting these comments in, then how many other people out there are expecting there to be some sort of foreclosure crash or crisis coming up? So I'm going to give that foreclosure update right now. And if you believe all of the headlines and the way that the headlines are coming in, because negativity definitely sells, you would think that we're right now into a giant slowdown. And so the market is really starting to slow. And you could see it with the different headlines. Some of the headlines that have thrown at me over and over again, and people get really angry and blame that they say that all the books are cooked. And that's because you get this: U.S. added 818,000 fewer jobs than reported earlier. So right around now, they do revisions, and those revisions go back to March of this year. So March 2023 to March 2024, there was it was revised, and it was revised down a total of 818,000 jobs. Now, this is not really political because here it is coming right recently. It's been revealed, and it's being revealed right before an election. So that's not what this is. This is common practice. It is the biggest revision since right prior to the Great Recession. So same kind of thing. When we went into the Great Recession, there was a problem with tracking all the jobs, and right now it's because they go on estimates of where we've been, and the job market kind of receded a little bit faster than what they anticipated, and that's kind of similar to what kind of happened in the Great Recession. Even though I'm mentioning the Great Recession, I'm just mentioning it. We don't have a Great Recession coming up. There's not the bubble of all bubbles or the crash of all crashes or anything along those lines. So you have to trust in all the numbers and data. But this is one of those headlines that just, something's going on. And you get more of those headlines that come in. And August jobs report comes in worse than expected as labor market stays chilly. So looks like, oh my gosh, something's happened in the labor market. And then you read other things such as the U.S. job openings declined to lowest levels since January of 2021. But you have to understand that these job openings, where they're at for right now, goes back to 2021. These are still higher than where they were prior to the pandemic. So, and the jobs created, it's still really positive. We still created 35,000 jobs. That's a lot of jobs that are created. It's not negative. We're not losing jobs, but the big increases are now in the rearview mirror from rebuilding after everybody was laid off for the pandemic, and slowly but surely all the jobs came back. But the job openings is lessening, as well as the number of jobs created. So this is why the Fed needs to kind of pivot in their language and also start to reduce the federal funds rate. And so then we also have a sharp slowdown in U.S. job growth boosts unemployment rate to 4.3%. Sounds ominous, and that's because unemployment's coming from these real low lows. As a matter of fact, they had hit a low recently that dates back to 1969. So that's a long time for having that kind of unemployment rate so low. It's easy to see that going from those low levels to where we are today isn't a big stretch. We're going back to more normal churn of unemployment, as well as jobs created, and job openings are moving more towards where we were prior to COVID. And then you get other headlines like a lousy jobs report forces Fed to reckon with hard landing. So we're starting to hear this hard landing, and is there going to be a big recession? Well, quite frankly, if the Fed doesn't make a big move next week, this is when they meet next, a big move, because they're going to talk about where interest rates are going to go into the future, as well as reveal how big of a rate cut we get, quarter point or half a point. If I was in that room, I would be arguing for at least a half a point cut. They should have already done that a long time ago. I was arguing for it in March. Definitely by the time we got to June, they should have done it. They didn't do it in July. Once again, now you look at July, right after that, we had a jobs report 2 days later that showed, something's going on. They didn't do it then. So you know what? They're behind the curve. They should have already started this. They should have done a quarter point now and a quarter point back in July, or back in June, we were saying, and then starts to see that these very high rates start to come down. And the market's way ahead of them. That's why you've already seen interest rates come down as much as they have. And we'll get into that in the very, very end, just to bring you up to speed. But it has been extremely frustrating being a buyer, or being somebody on the sideline, or being a renter, somebody, a millennial or a Gen Z that has been renting for a long time and watch their rents go up, and then watch values go up and then stick, and then watch interest rates that have jumped so high that it makes affordability just go out the window. Things are so unaffordable. So it's extremely frustrating. And I understand where they're coming from. So what ends up happening is you have a whole generation, a lot of people that are rooting for market crashes, for foreclosures, for property values to finally come down so that they can now purchase. And you understand that mentality and where it's coming from. And so there's this herd mentality. And unfortunately, this is the way this herd mentality works. We've seen it in politics. Everybody likes their favorite news stations. They go to their favorite news station, and that's all they hear all the time. So they're hearing just one viewpoint, and that's it. And it's typically not all of the news. Or if you're looking for, if you want a market crash or a foreclosure bust, you're going to head a certain direction. There are YouTube channels that are devoted to this. And as a matter of fact, what ends up happening is you have all these people suffer from social media misinformation. So they are just absolutely misinformed and misguided. And just because somebody is wearing a suit and in front of a camera, kind of like myself, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're an expert. I can tell you this right now, that all the talking heads that are doomers on YouTube, that have been doomers for a long time, they don't have the credentials. So the pedigree does not make sense. The credentials are, What kind of economic model are they following? What do they adhere to in this economic model? They're just grabbing things, headlines all over the place, and they're running with it. And then they show these different charts that they downloaded. And I'm telling you, it's taken so out of context that they show a chart, and then all of a sudden they say, so there you go. That's why things are just going to implode, and we're going to have the biggest crash of all times. And bigger than the Great Recession. And so what kind of an economic model, what kind of a degree do they have? A diploma from a university? What kind of experience do they have in forecasting and in economics? And what has their track record been? Because I can tell you, I've seen the track record of many of these doomers, and what ends up happening is they have been talking about this same thing over and over again for years and have misguided so many people. And that's because of the herd mentality. They're just going to come back for more. They come back for more, and they come back for more, and they just want to hear the negativity because eventually it may come true. But that's not really what the truth is. They listen to these people. They sound kind of like what they know what they're talking about, just because they are very passionate about their misinformation doesn't make it accurate, doesn't make it proper data and strategies and an economic model. That's just not the case in following these people. And so what they want to spew is they want to spew as much doom as they possibly can. Why do they do it day in, day out, put their head on the pillow, come out, say that it's going to be the biggest nightmare? It's going to happen soon. It's going to happen soon. And then go fly to these various areas like in Florida or Texas. I've even seen them fly here to California and talk about all these new homes, these new home builders that they have all this extra inventory. It's standing, and the market's just going to implode. And I'm telling you, builders haven't been more profitable in years. They're doing such a great job. But this is what they do over and over again. Why do they do it over and over again? Why do they wake up and are super negative? Because there's a herd mentality, a herd of people that will go and click and view what they have, the content. And rather than something, I'm hard pressed to get 3,000 views on anything that we put together. Yet these people get 300,000, 30 to 300 to 500,000. I've even seen million views. They get paid handsomely for those kind of videos when there's that many people that actually tune in. So at the end of the day, and you could see it, and banking crisis, red flag. You could see it in these things. Warning: banks are preparing for an imminent banking crisis and property foreclosures. As property foreclosures soar, 337,000 views. That was just 3 weeks ago. And then 3 months ago, HUD report shocking 100% surge in 90-day mortgage delinquencies. That's 154,000, or it's already begun. Nick Gurley, housing market crash. And this didn't give as many views because this is not actually his channel, but he's being quoted and used all over the place. Matter of fact, I've seen Nick on CNBC. I've heard him on Forbes. I've heard him on there's a whole bunch of platforms, Yahoo Finance, and it makes absolutely no sense to me because I've listened to all the nonsensical stuff that he's constantly throwing up, and it's just not the true accurate picture. He cherry picks all over the country, does different pieces, and then says that we are having this crash, and the crash is imminent. The crash is coming. Housing market crash. But he's been saying the same thing for years. This goes back years and years, the same thing over and over again. You can see the headlines. They're the same stuff. And why? Because that's what it's all about, clicks. Check the number of clicks you get because that's how you get paid. The more clicks, the more revenue that you earn. So instead, there are a bunch of people like myself that actually have the proper pedigree, the proper economic model, the degree behind it, the track record, the experience, everything. And we pour ourselves into this passionately, but it just doesn't sell because there's a whole subset of people that have not been served, and they're looking for values to come down, for the market to crash so they can finally actually purchase a home. So I get it. So why go out there and listen to somebody that's making sense and actually has the proper economic model? It's because that's not what they want to hear. They want to hear what they want to hear is what they go after. So instead, they're listening to all that negativity that's out there over and over again, rather than listen to channels like this, where it's actual what's going on, to properly set expectations. So there is a pathway for them to own a home. And we talked about that last week. And that's just, you need interest rates really to come down. The more interest rates come down, which they are right now, they're artificially a lot higher because that's where the Fed put them. And that's why we got all the way up to 8% back in October. And we're right now knocking on the door of below 6%. So that's a big change from 8 to 6 already. Big improvement in home affordability. Do the math. There's plenty of calculators that are out there where if you plug in 8, you plug in 6, plug in 5.75%, which is where we could possibly go later on this year. And then when interest rates go down further, which they will because of many reasons we've talked about before, boring, more economic stuff, for rationale of why interest rates will come down another whole percent, and then we can get into the upper 4s. What? Are you kidding me, Stephen? Yeah, no, I'm not kidding you. This is actual truth. So I'm going to deliver that. And right now I'm going to kind of educate you as to what's going on with foreclosures, just like I educated why the market's not going to crash last week. But first, I'd like to bring in our sponsor. Our sponsor is back with reverse mortgages. Reverse mortgages is this area where it has a negative connotation because of how reverse mortgages used to be done, but not anymore. This is definitely for a group, a subset of people, and this kind of a product is you need a specialist. And Senior Financial Group, Inc., they're your reverse mortgage experts today and for years to come. They specialize in reverse mortgages. And Kevin Kaltenbach is with the Senior Financial Group, Inc., and you can contact Kevin at 949-910-0932. That's 949-910-0932. And reverse mortgage purchase, you can actually purchase a home, and you can help your senior homeowners sell their current residence, use the equity to buy their next primary residence in one transaction with no monthly mortgage payment. So they can actually purchase a house, not have a monthly mortgage payment. Instead, what happens is it allows no payment, and you have all this equity, and then Kevin will explain it best as to why there's no payment, but it's not a scam. There's nothing about it that is that's awful and scary or predatory. It is really a niche, and it's for people that are older that don't want a monthly payment but want to make a move, and they don't want to work anymore. That's why you meet with Kevin Kaltenbach, because he can help you with reverse mortgage to make sure, hey, you know what, maybe you don't want a payment, and just live off of Social Security, don't have a monthly payment. So Kevin Kaltenbach he's your expert. He's Senior Financial Group, Inc. He's been specialized in reverse mortgages since 2001. He was even a director of the Orange County Realtors. And you can contact Kevin at 949-910-0932. That's 949-910-0932. Thank you so much for your sponsorship, Kevin. We really appreciate it. And now back to the program. So you're just going to be taught a little bit about what's really going on in the actual facts, the actual data, what it really looks like. And then we're going to show you in time what that means. We're not going to do percentages and things like that, but I'm going to explain why. But this is the national delinquency rate for first lien mortgages. So the delinquency rate, the average for 2000 to 2005, that was even prior to the Great Recession, for this time of year was actually at 4.35%. Where are we at right now? This is according to ICE, which used to be Black Knight. We're at 3.37%. And if I was to draw a line across where are we at right now, you could see we're far below where we were prior to COVID. And if you want to see, this is actual forbearance. Right prior to that you could see how a lot of people went into forbearance immediately when we had a big lockdown in 2020. And prior to that, that blue line is where the delinquency rate was at. And you can see it was still elevated even prior to COVID. And where we're at is far below that. As a matter of fact, where we're at right now, we've been dancing around for a long time, is lowest levels in decades. So that's the national delinquency rate. That's the number of homes, the percentage that is actually delinquent across the United States. And there's the severity of delinquency, and the severity of delinquency you can actually see here. I'm pointing to the black line. That black line is actually total delinquent. That, gosh, that's like a purple line, the next line down. And that one is actually 30-day lates. So 30-day lates is always elevated, but a lot of these people are late and they have a 30-day late on, and then they figure something out, and now they're on time. Now they're no longer delinquent, so they cure it. But what you really want to look at is long-term delinquencies. That gray line is 60 days. The blue line, a little bit higher, is 90 days plus delinquent. So those are the people that have been delinquent for a long time. And you can see it's very low where that is. As a matter of fact, I'll draw a line across for total delinquencies, and the 90 plus day delinquents is very, very similar. It's below where we were prior to COVID. On the very, very left is prior to COVID. And it's the same thing with the blue line. And that purple line, it's also below where we were prior to COVID. And prior to COVID, nobody was talking about foreclosures or short sales or, REOs, HUD-owned properties. Banks weren't in the game of really taking over that many properties. There's always people that get in pickles, regardless of the marketplace. If you're going to compare it to where we were in the past, well, we can definitely do that. And you could see that we're at a very, very low level as far as the mortgage delinquency. And if you look at the totals here, it's not quite 2 million is where we're at right now. So it's like about 1.8 million total across the United States that are currently delinquent, some sort of delinquency, either 30, 60, or 90. And less than 500,000 for the people that are long-term delinquent. And this is what somebody put as a comment last week, and it was, right now there are 10 million homes in foreclosure. They will be hitting the market next year. And I just went over the total number that is out there, and it's at like 1.8. So remember, we were just there. It's not quite 2 million. So not quite sure where they get the 10 million number from, because that's just not accurate. And you can actually see foreclosure inventory, and where's the foreclosure inventory at? Now the inventory on the right-hand side, it is foreclosure starts. That's the black line shows how many foreclosure starts. But the blue is the actual the foreclosure inventory and where it's at. Now, if I draw a line across for foreclosure inventory, you can see now we're looking at blue, and we're comparing it to 2019. The blue was higher because there were more foreclosures in 2019, and people didn't care about that. The meat of where we had a problem was all the way dates back to 2007 and even began in 2006. And where we're at right now, you draw a line across, we're looking at 2000 is the last time we had levels like this. So very, very low level of foreclosures that are out there. So don't have that many foreclosures. And here's something that I want everybody to understand. Now, we're coming at this low bar, this low level, such a low level that when you go from 1 to 2, like if you have one foreclosure for an area, which is common in some areas, they only have like 1 and now they went to 2, that's 100% increase. And you could see the headlines in the local paper, 100% increase in foreclosures. And yet it went from 1 to 2 when there are hundreds of homes that sell. And that's real simple math will show you when you go from 5 foreclosures to 20 foreclosures in any given time period, which is not what's really going on. It actually happened going from 2022 to 2023, but from 2023 to 2024, actually the number of foreclosures are down a bit. But you look at for the overall year, you go from 5 foreclosures to 20 foreclosures, which is where we're going to go as we get towards a normal amount. You're going to see going from 5 to 20 is a 300% increase. Now, at 20 foreclosures, when it's still such a small percentage of the total number of sales, it's nothing. We're just trying to make our way back to where we were even prior to COVID, and it's taking us a very long time to get there. And people really didn't care about foreclosures, like I said, in 2019. It was a real problem. In 2006 started to be a problem. 2007, 2008, 9, 10. That's where it was a problem. Not 2019. We haven't made our way back there. So be careful what you listen to, because there's plenty of headlines that are out there. We did one where there's a 161% increase in foreclosures. Big whoop. It was going from a small amount to still a small amount. But when you have math like this, it just shows you how the headlines can be misleading, because still at the 20 foreclosures, what is that Where is that compared to where we've been in the past? Where is that compared to where we were during the Great Recession? That's what you should be asking yourself, and that's what should be answered. And this is very, very important. I brought this up last week, but I want everybody to understand that the overall housing stock is the strongest ever. And you can't compare it to the housing stock all the homeowners collectively put together as to where we were prior to the Great Recession, or right at that Great Recession when we started it, because it was a pitiful housing stock. All the homeowners combined, it was a pitiful group of homeowners because they were getting in with the most ridiculous lending and they couldn't afford to purchase. And people were getting in and they had no income and they had no-look loans and they had teaser rate mortgages. It was a disaster, an absolute disaster. Now, ever since then, and Dodd-Frank came out where it just changed the way lending was done. And it's much different now. You have strong credit, you have great jobs, you have low fixed payments, which are hedge against inflation and rising rents, record tappable equity, which means you could tap your equity if you got in a pickle and still have 20% equity. And at the end of the day, you still have 20% equity, and that's a lot of equity in your house, and yet you're out of your pickle. And then there's record equity rich, which means that people have 50% plus equity in their homes. Equity, equity, equity. Record people that own their homes free and clear. This does not sound like a house of cards that's ready to collapse. That's the analogy we used during and prior to the Great Recession because we could see it coming, and afterwards and explaining it. So we're not going to see this foreclosure wave, this crisis. We're going back to where, yes, the economy is slowing down a little bit, but it's not going to be a giant negative impact to the housing market. As a matter of fact, the slowdown will bring rates down, which what will pull us out of that is an increase in activity, number of pending sales and closed sales in the housing arena. More closed sales. So there is actual light at the end of the tunnel, and you can already see it where interest rates have been, where they're going. We were at 6.11% for no points across the United States. So we're making it there. This is Mortgage News Daily. You could see we're getting very, very close to that 6% threshold. And the last time we were below 6% was in August of 2022. We're in September of 2024, so it's going on over 2 years, and we're finally going to get into the fives down the road. Exactly when? Shoot, you have to stay tuned for all the economics that comes forward and what the Fed has to say and what they're doing. There'll be plenty of talking points on that down the road, but this is headed the right direction, and know that this is helping. And you can see on the very left-hand side under that Mortgage News Daily, that's when we hit 8% interest rates last October. Interest rates are way lower this year, which is very favorable for buyers. Plus, there's a lot more to choose from for buyers right now. So thus, that's why right now it's a good time to purchase before we get to a really good market that's matched up to these low rates, which is coming in 2025. So right now, this is a good time to be in the arena. If you like what you've seen, like our channel, please subscribe, and go to reportsonhousing.com for more information to subscribe to one of our many reports. The most recent report that's out at all markets is called A Waning Market, talking about how the market, we've seen demand stay flat or down a little bit and very similar to last year. But this year we have a lot more inventory, which equates to a slower market, a waning market. And that's what we've been experiencing since about March of this year. Things have really been slowing down. So it's slowing down. It's not a buyer's market, but it's the most favorable time. It's buyer friendly right now is what we call it. And if you want a free month when you subscribe to one of our many reports, we're in Vegas, we're in Phoenix, we're in the Bay Area, we're in all of SoCal, including Ventura. We have a report for every single one of these different counties. Go to reportsonhousing.com and utilize the coupon code foreclose. So just want to thank you for joining us once again with Reports on Housing. Love bringing you the real stuff. Wish more people viewed it. Wish all those people that were herding over to all the negative sites, listening to all the negative information, would come this direction so that they could be properly educated. So if you can send those people that you hear saying those things our direction, it's only going to help everybody out so that they can make the proper decisions because they'll have the proper expectations for where the market's headed. Thank you so much. Hope you have a fantastic finish to your week, and we will see you on the other side.